Welcome to Stand Up for Doctors. I'm your host, Kim Downey. Thank you very much for joining us. This channel is dedicated to amplifying the voices of doctors, other healthcare professionals, and patients as they share their unique struggles, triumphs, and passions. My mission is to build connection and create advocacy for healthy doctors, driving positive change that benefits both doctors and patients. This is a space for everyone who cares about the future of healthcare. If you appreciate this content, please like and subscribe now. It really helps the episodes reach our target audience. And this episode is brought to you by The Developing Doctor, a coaching program by Dr. Ben Reinking that helps physicians grow with purpose in medicine and beyond. You can find Ben at thedevelopingdoctor.com, contact information in the show notes. And now on to the show. Today, I would like to welcome Dr. Tonya Caylor and Nikolai Blinow. Thanks for joining us today, Tonya and Nikolai.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me, Kim.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And by way of a brief introduction, because I'll have you introduce yourselves, Dr. Tonya Caylor is a physician coach for family medicine residencies, co-director of the AMWA Evolve Leadership Coaching Program, coach for the UW Madigan Hybrid Faculty Development Program, and a speaker on professional fulfillment and well-being. And Nikolai Blinow is a mental health counselor and therapeutic coach specializing in neurodivergent entrepreneurs and executives. And she recorded a TED Talk about yoga and its connection to mental health. And today I thought we could start our conversation by discussing wellness versus well-being and what that means for doctors and patients and take it from there. And I do always start by asking what you'd most like our audience to know about you. Feel free to include hobbies, whatever you'd like. Tonya, would you like to go first?
Sure. So I am a family physician, educator, and coach up in Anchorage, Alaska. I still maintain a limited practice, filling in at the residency program and at the QHC, but primarily my energy is focused on coaching residents, faculty, and leadership teams. I am married, have two grown daughters, one of which has her own two littles, and I enjoy teaching one of them to play a small little duet on the piano with me, so that's a lot of fun. And I'm on my way to becoming the best sous chef for our personal chef, i.e. my husband, at home. So that's enough about me.
Wow, I really love that. I'll have to see if my husband is interested in taking up cooking. I'll tell him I'm a sous chef. That would be great. Nikolai, what would you like us to know about you?
I would like you to know, so as you already mentioned, I'm a licensed mental health counselor and a therapeutic coach. I am also a late in life diagnosed ADHD person, which is how I ended up coming to my work with fellow neurodivergent people. Primarily for me, ADHD, although I work with all kinds of neurodivergence. I don't have hard data on this, but I actually truly firmly believe there's a strong subset of physicians who have high functioning ADHD, because I think those of us who've flown under the radar for so long are really passionate about the work that we do, and are able to perform immensely well when they're topics that we care about, like helping people. And you also mentioned I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, executives. I think sometimes when we're in healthcare, we don't always think of ourselves in that way. However, Tonya, I know, I believe you have your own practice, right? I have my own mental health practice. We are also sort of like independent, our own entrepreneurs and executives, but I feel like we wear multiple hats, and trying to wear the identity of like small business owner while also wearing the identity of a healthcare practitioner can be really challenging. And then if you add in potentially if you're ADHD or another type of neurodivergency like I am, it's just you're adding many layers. For fun things, I have a rescue dog and a rescue cat, and a non-rescue dog who I love very much. And I love gardening, which is why you have me in a messy bun today, because it is almost 100 degrees on the East Coast, as you know, Kim. And I was out in my garden earlier and getting very sticky and sweaty in this muggy weather.
Well, thank you for sharing all that. And I recently did feature two neurodivergent physicians, and they were saying that they feel sometimes physicians do self-select for this, and they think that there are more than are known neurodivergent physicians. And we did speak to that. So I think that's really important to acknowledge it because there are extra challenges. And one of them didn't get diagnosed till he was in his 50s and he's 70, and that presented challenges that you don't understand. So just having the diagnosis can help you understand things a lot better. So I think it's important to spotlight that. And the reason I asked if we could start by talking about wellness versus well-being is that I know that words matter, and I just wanted your perspective. So one of my oldest and dearest college friends, she's a PT major too, we went for a walk last week, and somehow we were talking, and she unfortunately developed about 10, 12 years ago a lot of autoimmune disorders. It was a domino because it's hard to have one is bad enough, but once you have one, you're prone to get other ones. So she has a lot of health issues. And somehow the word wellness came up, and she said, I don't like that word because at this point in her life, it's impossible for her to actually be what you consider well. So if you have wellness as a goal, that's unachievable for her, in her opinion. But if you're talking about well being, no matter your state, you can emphasize well being and what's well being for you. And I know as far as words matter that I was relating that to when people are talking about suicide, how some people say commit suicide, and that I've heard you really shouldn't say commit suicide because it's not like committing a crime. And in that moment, it's almost like a heart attack of the brain, and that you can't anymore control your actions in that moment than if you were having a heart attack. And they say it's better to use the word like from, because I was saying died by suicide, but they're saying, well, you'd say like died from a heart attack or died from a stroke. So since words matter, I do try to respect that and use that language. So Tanya, I was wondering, what's your thoughts about the words wellness versus well-being?
It's so interesting how this is one of the things that we do as coaches too, right? Is figure out what a word means to somebody because we all think we're saying the same language. And so it's fascinating to hear how your friend thinks of the word wellness. To me, wellness, probably because of the reaction to recent events, such as the pandemic, small things like that. Wellness started to feel to me more performative, like wellness activities felt performative versus well-being, which I will say either one is, I would like to say well-being is more than the absence of burnout, right? And to me, well-being is more whole. So it's your whole being well, like not just physical, but your mental, spiritual, relational, financial, the whole things. And if we expand out, Tate Shanafelt's done a lot of work in this area, and he has a paper about well-being 2.0, and he extends well-being beyond the individual to the systems. And I think that's a really interesting thing because that it becomes more relational there. It becomes more about community and being purpose-driven, having shared purpose. So, so I think there's also personal and system, both responsibility and power involved in well-being. So I'll stop there for making sure we have plenty of time to cover things.
Actually, I love all that you said, so thank you very much. And Nikolai, anything you'd like to add to what Tanya said, and anything that you'd like to share yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I agree wholeheartedly with what Tanya's saying. I do a lot of individual coaching work, and I love, Tanya, when I was looking you up, that you're also doing work in the educational systems and I think in other systems as well. Because I think when I hear the word wellness, for me, being someone who works with the individuals who sometimes have been given maybe like wellness programs in their workplaces or being taught about ways to achieve wellness. I think one thing that I observe is that wellness sometimes can feel like a static state that we're trying to achieve, right? Like you said, it's something we're trying to aim for, versus when I think of the word well-being, that for me feels more like a practice. If you think of the word, like we're just being, it's like we're trying to be in a place where we are well. And that might be a moving target, right? Like well-being might shift and our needs for well-being may shift as we grow as people, as our workplace situations change, as Tonya said, even like financial factors change. And also, quite frankly, I think sometimes because wellness can, for some people, come with that sort of static feeling. I feel the same way about balance, right? That's another thing that people feel like they come to me all the time asking for balance, but I'm always telling them like it's not a place I can just get you to and then you're there. It's you have to learn how to always be finding the balance. But I think sometimes wellness can turn people off because it can be very static and state focused. And if they've ever been given wellness programs, depending on the quality of those programs, which hopefully Tonya is having impact on creating better ones, they can feel sometimes like they put too much responsibility, I think, on the individual, and they don't always address the systemic issues that do contribute to feeling burnt out. And so I think sometimes as words just have more time existing in the ether and they collect good baggage or bad baggage, sometimes just the word wellness can automatically turn people's brains off for how it's been used in the world around them.
I love all that, and I've definitely heard that from physicians. So I'm going to really make it a point to start using generally, and I think sometimes I do, but I might have been using them more interchangeably, but I'm going to focus now more on well-being than wellness. So thank you both for working with me on that. And I've been asking our guests to share a powerful story. So Tonya, it could be related to, what's your why for what you do, your why for wanting to be here on Stand Up for Doctors, because people remember the stories most of all.
Gosh, Kim, as I was thinking about this, it's not just one story. And I think my why is built up of many stories. So like headlines, like it was the resident who went into a very hard to get into fellowship and who finished the fellowship and then left medicine immediately because they were burned out. It's the friend and colleague who died from suicide 13 years ago, and then another one last weekend. It is the watching a collective team of faculty with brilliant people become so enraged and have the contagion effect of blame and anger, and how they made them turn on each other and create an environment where even their residents were feeling really not mentally well because of the atmosphere. It's the individuals who are spending pajama time from after their kids go to bed till midnight, right? And then getting up and doing it again and just kind of getting further behind on that escalator, right? Walking, the opposite way. And there's so many stories. And so when I tried to think of how I could give you one story, I thought I should just give you kind of an overview, but that's what I was seeing. All of these brilliant people, especially right out of training, ready to turn in their clinical work hat, all that time, effort, blood, sweat, tears that they've dedicated to that, and they're ready to walk away from it. So that's my why.
Yeah, well, that really resonates with me because in talking to hundreds of doctors, I've heard of all of those things. And
Mhm.
then also that you're in hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt, and
Mhm.
sometimes the doctors don't see a way out. And if they do want to pivot, and some do take their own life over that when they call it like the golden handcuffs, right?
Mhm.
Because they could be making the money, but they feel so trapped. And it also just pains me to hear, that there was another suicide last weekend and that it's still and I think that the number of over 400 doctors a year dying by suicide is outdated, and also that's just in America, and also I believe it's probably underreported. Either from families, and deciding what they choose to share or not share, or just sometimes it might not be known. It might not, look like that. So, of course, it's like a sucker punch to the gut, and I feel like we're trying to do what we can and make mental health resources available, and the Dr. Lorna Breen Heroes Foundation, I'm an ambassador, right? And we're doing such important work. They're doing such a great job, and it's still not enough. So we just need to get the word out. There's help available. There's always a way forward. It's never too late. So thank you for sharing all of that. And Nikolai, anything you'd like to respond to what Tonya said, and share a story of your own?
Yeah, I mean, I think based on what I observe, both as someone in the healthcare system, not a doctor myself, but in the field with you, who also works with people in the field, like I feel like I understand why burnout is such a big issue in our line of work, and yeah, it makes me immensely sad to see people. I'm 41, right? Having clients who are younger than I am sometimes, who, like Tonya's saying, have put in so much time and effort and money into getting their medical license to practice and being in the field, and finding that it doesn't feel sustainable to them. It just feels really, especially for those people who are so young, it's like you have worked so hard to get here. You probably have peers who have been in some sort of career for 10 years longer than you have. And then here you are, you're finally living the dream. And the dream is not the dream you thought it was going to be. I also just thought when you asked me that question, Kim, so I used to do emergency on call mental health evaluations here in my state. Um, and I went to just working in, quite frankly, like the depths of one of the local emergency rooms, literally in the basement. And we had one girl there one day that I was not even there to evaluate. She had already been evaluated, but she was having her first psychotic break. She was probably 18 or 19 years old. And there's probably 10 to 14 different rooms in this emergency room mental health wing. And the security guard just kept, trying to encourage her. She kept stripping her clothes off, and they dress her, and she kept stripping her clothes off. And she was waiting for a bed to be admitted. But here we are in this mini system that we're existing in the mental health. And there's one doctor, right? There's one doctor who's almost like the spoke of the wheel that's sort of managing this woman in, probably, I would say, again, her first psychotic break, a moment of high crisis. Also, maybe overseeing 10 to 14 other patients. I'm there to help sort of carry my part of the workload and do the mental health work. But that psychiatrist was like amazing and patient and kind. And I just thought how lucky for this woman, right, to have a medical doctor who was so capable and competent and hopefully experiencing well being, because also being someone who's done emergency on call work, I think I've had the benefit of working alongside lots of doctors, because every time I would get called into the emergency room, it's whatever doctor is sort of on shift that we are reporting and running our cases through. And I think I've also seen the doctors in emergency medicine work who are really, really burnt out and exhausted, and their patience is worn thin. And as someone who works in the mental health side, understanding that the well-being of our doctors, right, also gets fed back to us as the patients. And when doctors feel well and have the support that they need, like, we also get the highest level, I think, of care. Everybody wins when everybody hopefully feels healthy and good.
That's 100% true. And I've quoted
Mhm.
Dr. Kathy Stepien so many times.
Mhm.
Everyone wins when physicians are well. And
Mhm.
Dr. Emna Shabir wrote an equation: physician advocacy equals patient advocacy. So if you're advocating for doctors and if they're physically and emotionally well and have the bandwidth and capacity to treat the patients the way they want to treat them, then you're going to get good care. And we need doctors. So Tonya, what do you see is the answer? How can we move forward?
Yeah, I think it's a multi-pronged approach, right? There's not going to be a one solution, and that's why I really have come to like I did mostly just individual coaching, and then expanded because really we need teams to be functioning well. We need the groups of faculty and the teams of faculty to be, and I work in with the residency program because if we can get them in a situation where high stress time under or in training, right? No matter how you change it, it's going to be a stressful time. And if we can do that well, and the faculty are healthy, and then we graduate really healthy, high functioning individuals who enjoy their chosen careers. Number one, they're going to notice red flags in the workplace. Number two, they have the emotional, mental capacity, they have the capital to start to influence the system because we are all part of the culture we're in. We all contribute to the culture we're in, whether intentional or unintentionally. And some of those, I hope, will become leaders within the system who take a well-being approach, look at the leading the system well in that kind of well-being 2.0 that Tate Shanafelt talked about. And so I think individual coaching, the reason I focus on that is because when you give an individual the tools, they can make system changes. And so just thinking through like a personal example of an individual example, coaching a resident and to be able to get through their charting and see patients and how much better they feel when they don't have this guilt and shame and feel like they're not doing it enough and have pajama time to do their notes and feel like faculty are criticizing them, right? So that's kind of one piece of when that changes and watching the joy that comes from that. And then they're like reconnected to why they are here. So that's coaching the individual for their own well-being. But then coaching for like systems. If you, for instance, I had a person that was coaching and there were some interpersonal issues with her one-up leader. And with coaching, she was able to lose a little bit of judgment, tap into a little bit of curiosity, approach the individual. It still takes two people to have a conversation, but with her new approach came an openness and responsiveness to that person where they could sit down and hammer out things. And the things they were hammering out was going to affect the whole department. So this is how coaching individuals can affect system change. So this is my contribution in that world, especially in education, but that's just going to be one piece of it. And I'm loving, I can't wait to hear what Nikolai, you have to say.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing I can offer as someone who works with burnout, and as part of that, I work with people in the medical field, and I'm not exclusively focused on just the medical profession. A lot of the data that I sort of consume and read about burnout is, if we really want to help protect people from burnout, it is the quality of your leadership that is one of the biggest indicators of how burnt out you will or will not be. And so, coming back to some people having a yucky taste in their mouth about the term wellness, I think that's because a lot of us have unintentionally internalized that it's our responsibility, or we've been heavily suggested but it's been heavily suggested to us that we just have to maybe set better boundaries or get better at sleep hygiene or make sure we're better at our charting, more efficient, whatever it is. But my style of therapy that I'm trained in is called dialectical behavioral therapy. And the term dialectic basically means two things that seem opposite can actually both be true, right? So it can be our individual responsibility to make sure we don't burn out. And there absolutely can be things that we can do to prevent that. And it can be the responsibility of the system as well to make sure we don't burn out. So I love what Tonya's saying about these residents being set up for success early on, but also potentially growing into those future leaders that are going to continue to influence the systemic change. And quite frankly, yeah, I think one of the things that I end up coaching people on sometimes the most is emotional regulation work, which is how do you navigate your feelings around your work and the things that maybe are causing you to feel burnt out. Like you feel guilty if you can't do 10 million things, or you feel ashamed like you're not good enough. We have to figure out how to shift those. And then interpersonal effectiveness. So being able to assert, right? And I think as people who exist in the medical world, we've been trained ethically to sort of always believe first do no harm, right? Like we all have internalized that. And I think sometimes almost in our effort to not want to inconvenience other people or not look a certain way, we end up harming ourselves. And we view sometimes just speaking up and asserting boundaries as like harming, when maybe that's not actually true. And again, coming back to healthy physicians are good doctors and everyone benefits. And sometimes that might mean having to push back a little bit on one part of your system.
Mm-hmm.
I'll also add that Mayo just published this year their systemic approach to well-being. It's fabulous. They have a really well-rounded approach. So I wish I could remember, I don't remember if it's in Mayo Proceedings, but if you look up Colin West on Twitter or anywhere, he has a lot of good information about what they put in place.
Well, thank you. And if you find the link to that, if there's, I'm gonna have both of you in a moment share, how our listeners can get in touch with you. And if there's any links for resources that you would like to share, I'll put those in the show notes. So everything you're both saying is spot on. It's going to be a multifaceted and focusing on teams. And actually, tomorrow morning, I'm going to be interviewing Dr. Josh Hartzell, and he wrote this book. He sent it to me, A Prescription for Caring and Healthcare Leadership, Building a Culture of Compassion and Excellence. And I'm going to be interviewing him with Dr. Apurv Gupta, who focuses on like a loving organization. And it just is what you were saying, we need to care about our teams, and we need to give them the tools, and we need to resource our teams. Mm-hmm. And the caring has to be at all levels. Leaders need to care about each other. Leaders need to care about the workers, including physicians and the whole team. And then the physicians need to care about each other, because sadly, what you're saying, I've had conversations with multiple physicians who had a horrendous experience in residency, and it should not be like that. And they're told, if you don't do this or that, right, that you won't graduate, won't get through your residency. And sometimes the culture of the people above them, either the upper residents or the attendings, that's the problem. But it's either they thought, oh, well, it toughens you up, or, oh, I did it, you can do it, do it. Or that they're so in such a place of emotional unhealth themselves, that's the best they can show up. So if we can all be kind and care about each other, that's, I think, where it's all at. So I think we could talk all day, but I know we only have like a few more minutes. So Tonya, what else? Just share anything you really want to share with our audience, and also how our listeners can get in touch with you.
I think a couple of things that I don't want to forget to mention, and that is that we do have to have that people first, that leading with compassion. And I think compassion is not only self-compassion for each person who's standing up for the healthcare system, um, but also compassion for the people instead of villainize, is that a word? Villainizing? Yes.
Villainizing, sure.
Yes. Instead of villainizing them, like switch into that curiosity mode and maybe extend compassion, because those jobs, I would never want to have one of those jobs. I'm just going to say thank you for all the leaders who are taking them and helping. Don't forget how small changes can influence the system. So just one small change for yourself, one small conversation, show an appreciation for your colleagues, showing appreciation for your leaders, letting them know they are valued. Two things can be true at once. I do value you and I disagree with this policy, right? But don't underestimate how those small changes can really impact. As far as how you can find me at my on my website, and that is joyandfamilymedicine.com. And thank you, Kim, for all the work that you are continuing to do. And Nikolai, it was great to hear about your work as well.
Thank you. All that is terrific, and I thank you for sharing and thank you. I feel honored to be doing this work. And Nikolai, anything you would like to leave our audience with, and also how our listeners can get in touch with you?
Yeah, I think I'll piggyback on everything Tonya just said. And basically, I think what's most important is remembering that, like, dialectical philosophy, that things are not always as all or nothing as they seem. It's not either this happens or that. Really shifting to a world where we can be both and, right? Like, we can take responsibility, we can self advocate, and we can maintain compassion for our clients or our patients or ourselves, or like Tonya is saying, administration and people who are leading. I think it just is such, like, that is so much of a more valuable way of moving through the world. And if people want to find me, my website is 𝗲𝗹𝗹𝗯𝗔. So it's the word empowerment, but with an OM because of my mindfulness and yoga background. 𝗲𝗹𝗹𝗋psych.com. And I will say, if anyone out there is listening and they do feel like they have potentially undiagnosed ADHD, or they are a late in life diagnosed person, I do have on my website a free guide for ADHD entrepreneurs and executives. And like I said, although not all doctors may identify as that, I think if you are a potential ADHD or other type of neurodivergent person, there's just a lot of really good evidence-based stuff in there that hopefully will be very helpful to people.
Well, thank you both for sharing that. And Nikolai, what you were saying reminded me of the song by Melinda, It's All True at the Same Time. Have you heard that?
Mm-hmm.
It's like
I
you are shattered and you are whole, you are dangerous and deep. It's like I don't. It's like really good. It has a. I'll send you guys the link, or maybe I'll put that in the show notes too, because it's a beautiful song, and depending on where people are in their life, it can really hit you. Because sometimes words and songs just get at a deeper level and can be really meaningful. So thank you again for being my guest. I was grateful to have this conversation with both of you, for taking time out of your busy schedules.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And in closing, to move the needle in healthcare, we all need to raise our voices and we all need to care about each other. We already know that doctors need to care about patients. Patients need to care about doctors too. So stand up, doctors, and let's stand up for doctors.